Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third session for the Centering Indigenous Pedagogies in Mathematics Education workshop, hosted by the UBC Edithando Virtual Learning Center. Today's session is on culturally responsive mathematics education across contexts. And I am now going to pass it on to Cynthia.
Thank you, Calvin, and welcome everyone. I'd like to suggest Leyton, I can't see you, but I think you're there. Are you?
I'm here. Yeah, you bet.
Okay. Did you want to start us off, Leyton?
Go ahead, Cynthia. I am now parked in a parking lot, everybody. I had a little bit of snow driving myself this afternoon, so I'm just delighted to be here, and the Rural Education Advisory is delighted to co-host along with all the other partner groups. Over to you, Cynthia.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. So then I'll invite Dr. Joanne Archibald William to start us off. Joanne?
While Cynthia's doing that, I'll say Swayal. It's a good day, snowing or maybe not snowing, but it's a good day that we're all together for this session on culturally responsive math education across contexts. And our overall webinar theme is Centering Indigenous Pedagogies in Math Education. My name, Kwam Huyam, means strong, clear water. I'm also known as Joanne Archibald, a member of Stalo Nation, and have ancestry in Statlian Nation too. And I welcome everyone as this webinar series is also sponsored by the University of British Columbia. We are grateful to be on the traditional unceded territory of Musqueam, and in the Vancouver area, we also are grateful to be on the traditional unceded lands of Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh Indigenous peoples. Acknowledge our partners that have sponsored this webinar series, our Indigenous Math Network, the David Robitaille International STEM Education Network, both hosted at UBC. Dogwood 25 is a not-for-profit community organization interested in helping the K-12 system increase its success rate for Indigenous learners. Also sponsored by the BC Ministry of Education and the Rural Education Advisory. So I think Cynthia is going to share with us this teachings about this really intriguing image and wonderful image for us.
Thank you, Joanne, and welcome everybody. My name is Cynthia Nicol, and I'm a professor in the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy and hold the chair for the David Robitaille Professorship in Mathematics and Science Education. And as Leyton had said, it's my pleasure to participate in co-hosting the webinar with my colleagues, Joanne Archibald, Leyton Schnellert, Janice Nowakowski. Have everybody? We'll be introducing our guest to you in a moment. As previously said, this is our third session in this series, and we would like to invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat if you haven't already, and the lands that you are currently on. And while you're doing that, I can introduce you to Gagiid. So this is a very powerful image of Gagiid. Is a carved transformation mask by Haida artist Reg Davidson. And here's an image of Reg here. Reg comes from a long line of carvers and artists, and he's really well known for his carving of poles and canoes and masks like this one. And he performs his art as a member of the Haida dance group called the Rainbow Creek Dancers, and they are actually performing this weekend in the Vancouver area for anyone who's interested in attending. And I first met Reg and his carving of this two-phase transformation mask when he was in the middle of putting the inside and the outside kind of together. So the mask actually opens up and you can see Here he's working on it, but if I just go back to this one, you can actually see the strings that kind of go far out. And those are, if you pull on those, if you're behind the mask and you pull on them, it actually opens up into this transformation. And the Gagiid, as I remember Reg talking about it, is this really wild spirit thing. And it's got a spirit that's way too strong to die. And when you open it up, there's a human inside. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to think about ourselves as a transformation. We are trying to help our students transform their thinking to new ways of thinking and new ways of being mathematical in the world. And for us, trying to think about how do we connect ourselves with Indigenous pedagogies and perspectives and mathematics in a good way. So this transformation itself kind of brings Indigenous community and culture and mathematics education together by centering Indigenous pedagogies in math education, which is the theme of our session. You saw Reg there carving his mask. Here is just an image of Haida Gwaii, where Reg is from, located in the Pacific Northwest in British Columbia. And you can just see a little bit here of the beauty of the place and how the beauty of the place is really the language of the art. And here is the inside of the mask, the human mask. So session 3, which is what we're focusing on today, was preceded by 2 other sessions. And I just want to give you just a little recap of what happened in those sessions if you are not able to join. And even if you were, this might just give you a little bit of grounding for what we're about to do in our 3rd session. So our focus on this webinar series is around centering Indigenous pedagogies and perspectives. And so we started our first session with this theme of mathematical moments of becoming Indigenous storywork ready. And we had is a theme there. And we had Dahlia Benedict and Karen Keel share some of their projects. And I just have a couple slides that I pulled from those presentations. So here, Dahlia was sharing a project with middle school students. They were looking at being guided by the principles of exploring the stories in the land and the different contexts in that. And through this was around animal tracking and land. And this one was on land claims. So looking at the stories of the land and how those are mathematical moments for becoming Indigenous storywork ready. And then Karen actually did her project with little ones, primary teachers, and she was looking at working with Indigenous storywork principles within a 3-act math task. So some of you might know a 3-act math task, which is like a story where you offer an opportunity for kids to notice and wonder, and then ask for more information to try to solve the problem. Here, she draws upon Indigenous storywork principles to help choose a story, and then to try to help think about how she's going to bring it to students in this task. And it was all around turtles that were familiar to kids in her place, as well as in the story that she was sharing. So those were some mathematical moments of being an Indigenous storywork ready that were offered in our first session. And in our second session of this webinar, we were looking at the power of teaching and learning mathematics through land and place. And there we had 2 presentations. This one from Tani, who shared her project about being a classroom teacher in these beautiful lands here and drawing upon the community story of Chehalis, and having students be able to, from the story, be able to mathematically model the building of a sustainable fish weir, all part of the story. And Carol Bob from the northwest part of British Columbia spoke about, in her project, about this highway of tears, where more than 400 women and girls have gone missing along this highway from Prince Rupert, all the way from Haida Gwaii, actually, all the way to Manitoba. And Carol spoke about how using Indigenous storywork principles were used to engage students in this very sensitive issue, and how math could help deepen the understanding of the issue and help kids learn how to respond to it. So those are session 1 and session 2, and they are available at the Edith Lando virtual learning website. I think the link will be in the chat. So if you'd like to watch those webinars, they're available for you. So we're going to start with session 3, which is looking at culturally responsive mathematics education across contexts. And so I'll just invite Joanne to say a little bit about Indigenous storywork and the principles of that. And I'll just share a bit around culturally responsive education and what are the possibilities for that. And then we'll invite our speakers. So Joanne.
Yes, thank you. So as you can tell from Cynthia's overview, we have engaged in the principles of Indigenous storywork. And as you see on this slide, the 4 R's of respect, responsibility, reverence, and reciprocity, we have positioned as ways to get storywork ready. So that could mean ourselves as educators, or it could mean getting the learners also ready to engage with Indigenous traditional or life experience stories, where we get ourselves ready to be able to listen. And sometimes we can say listen with our 3 ears, the 2 we hear with, and we bring that together with what we feel in our heart. So then we are getting in a sense, our whole bodies or our senses all ready to receive and to engage with the story. And through that, we also really appreciate when educators take time to get the learners ready to know something about the story, whether it's the cultural, the historic, the geographical context, and something about the storyteller. And that often when we are engaging with the stories, we can experience a sense of awe and wonder, which might be part of reverence. And then through students learning, there are ways that they share what they learn. And it's in a way, it's kind of giving back, but really it's more about strengthening the learning that can happen through stories. And with the stories themselves, we can appreciate the holistic nature that these stories can educate our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits, and that we can think of the context of the learner within the learner's family and community and greater society, and think about that relationship with the story. And sometimes that interrelatedness, where we might bring together one's emotion with the physical, which might be problem solving, to try and help perhaps a character in a story think, and could be us thinking about how to be better relations, perhaps with nature, or think about how we might problem solve and use mathematics education to help us with solving some of the problems. And again, with sharing and doing the work, a new energy is created, which can help us make deeper our new meanings with and from the story. So the indigenousstorywork.com website is there for more information about these particular principles. So thanks, Cynthia.
Thanks, Joanne. So thinking about those principles and Indigenous storywork, we've just listed a few. Like Indigenous storywork itself could be considered as a Indigenous pedagogy, but Indigenous pedagogies tend to have, and perspectives tend to have, and tend to emphasize these various characteristics: the interconnectedness and interrelatedness that Joanne was talking about, relationality, non-linearity, thinking of things more circular and cyclical, dynamic systems, ecosystems are an example of that, thinking more about the human as well as the more than human world, or what Robin Wall-Kimmerer talks about as kin, intergenerational learning. So thinking about extending our learning to generations in the future, as well as generations past, so our ancestors. holistic learning with the heart, spirit, mind, and body. Learning that's collaborative and collective learning, so coming together to learn and build on each other's strengths and gifts. And then also learning that really thinks deeply about the importance of land and language or place. So these are all aspects of Indigenous pedagogies and perspectives. And so thinking about that alongside culturally responsive math education and thinking about what is in the responsive part of culturally responsive math education, what is it actually responding to? And so we think that culturally responsive math education is responding to students' cultural communities and the communities of others, so including place and land, that more than human world that we're just talking about. It's responding to students' identities and their futures. So thinking about that ancestral kind of past as well as future in terms of math, community, and culture. And then also thinking about current issues and local and global things that are happening right now in the world, not only just in our own communities, but also connected to what's happening outside that, but that conversation between the global and the local at multiple levels, as Joanne mentioned, the cultural, the political, the social, the economic, the ecological, and then also education that contributes to family and community thriving. And we might add with that, if we're thinking about the human and the more than human, the thriving of the more than human world as well. So there are lots of resources around culturally responsive education generally, and then there are resources around more specifically. We have a book that came out a couple of years ago that focuses on looking at culturally responsive education in Indigenous communities. And then this is a version, the cover of the mathematics teacher that also focused on the culturally responsiveness and mathematical practices. So these are two resources that go in a little deeper into thinking about it in the context of mathematics. Okay, so I think we're ready to get started with session 3. Just to introduce our where our speakers are coming from we're all kind of located in the Lower Mainland this time. So there's a bunch of stacked red dots there. And I'll just invite Joanne to say a little bit about each of our speakers, or Rob maybe first, and then we'll move to our curriculum responders.
Yes, so we're really excited to learn from Rob Cowie and Rob's colleagues. Rob is an Indigenous resource teacher for the Coquitlam School District number 43. He was a classroom teacher for 18 years and has been working at the school district level for 12 years, helping educators connect curriculum with Indigenous content and ways of knowing. And Rob will share the work that has happened with creating a Minecraft version of Pacific Northwest Coast. So this is innovative and very exciting. And after Rob's presentation, we will have 2 educators who we call curriculum responders, who will think about and share with us some pedagogical ideas for grade levels or pedagogical approaches that relate to culturally responsive mathematics teaching. And the curriculum responders are Megan, who is from the Métis Nation. Megan works as an Indigenous enhancement teacher in the Vancouver School District that is located on the traditional unceded lands of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. Megan is a mentor for the 23-24 Indigenous Community Culture Math Education Mentorship Program. And we have Christina Reis, who is the coordinator of educational technology at Meadow Ridge School in Maple Ridge, BC. Christina is also an adjunct instructor for the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy at UBC. Her classroom experience includes teaching at the International Baccalaureate program, the middle years program in mathematics, science, and also the diploma program, biology area. In her spare time, Christina enjoys exploring local trails with her dog, Jax, and is an avid coach of both school and club volleyball teams. And after our curriculum responders, we'll have time for some questions from you who have joined us. And then Cynthia and I will give some closing remarks. Let's go with Rob and your presentation, please.
Welcome, everybody. Hello, I'm Rob Cowie. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm sitting in my office watching the snow come down on the traditional unceded lands of the Coquitlam, who've been stewards of these lands from time immemorial. And so I'm so happy to be here with you. This project has been a project of love for the last 2 years, and along with my partner, Gavin Hanna, as he describes it, he's the nerd side of this project, and I'm the cultural side. So we blended our two skills together to come up with this virtual world for you. So we could never have really gotten this project off the ground without the express consent with the Coquitlam Nation, whose lands we're on. We would have weekly meetings with the cultural facilitator out of Coquitlam. Her name is Nancy Joe. And we would show her what our progress, and then she would say, okay, that is not quite, let's put it here, and we need to make sure we add this. So without their help, this project would not have gotten off the ground. So we always raise our hands for them. Microsoft is put up a lot of money to help us build this world, and their contractors were Logix Academy here in Canada, helped us to create the world. And of course, we always have to recognize our own school district, because they gave us a lot of release time in order to develop this to the final start line. So what is Minecraft? And Minecraft is a virtual world made of blocks, and every block is 1 meter cubed. Typically, the game was starting out as mining. You're mining for resources, and you dig, and you destroy the earth, basically, because it's all about extraction. And in Minecraft, it's like mine. I'm taking it because it's me and mine. Or what you can do in this world is you can actually build or create, and that's the flexibility and beauty of this game, using blocks. So in some ways you're restricted because you're using blocks, but at the same time it's very creative, shall we say. Okay, so you're going to find out that our world is taking that idea of Minecraft and we've turned it a little bit. So we'll show you that in a bit. So where do we get our inspiration? Well, in New Zealand, Minecraft went down to New Zealand to say, hey, can we recreate your local legends? And so there is a world called Gagiid, the islands, and they're recreating their legends and the story of how the islands came to be. And then as we were working on our project, Manitoa Biaki was developed. And that is talking about the Métis and the Anishinaabe world out in Manitoba. And in the prairies, you can actually go for a buffalo hunt. And so that's another world within this Minecraft world that you can explore as well. And so that really helped us get motivated to get our world completed. So what were our driving factors? Well, of course, on the cultural side, the First Peoples principle of learning was crucial to try to have that embedded within the whole world. And where Gavin comes from is his STEAM background. So typically we see STEAM as science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics as separate terms, but our goal was to slowly get rid of those barriers and turn it all into one, make it more holistic. And that's exactly where the principles and STEAM work so magically together, because learning is holistic, reflexive, reflective, experiential, and relational. So you're going to find in this world that all of those levels and all those understandings are within the game. There were some challenges though, and this is why it took us about 2 years to complete, is number one, there was no West Coast environment. When you go into Minecraft, you can find all these different environments, but there was no West Coast environment. we needed to recreate a landscape where the ocean met the land and it had rivers and deltas and islands. They didn't have that in the world. So we had to recreate a whole new world just for us. They also did not have cedar tree. They had birch, they had acacia, but there was no cedar. And cedar, of course, is the heart of all of the West Coast peoples. And so we had to recreate cedar. They didn't have the West Coast animals. They did have salmon in the game, which was fortunate for us. However, they didn't have ravens. They didn't have bears. And bears here in Coquitlam, where I live, I mean, they're almost like a daily feature. And some people would say that they're pets, but that's another story. So that was really, really important that we also had plants that we could find here on the West Coast that we had to recreate. So we overcame those challenges, which was wonderful. Now, the journey that we decided to go on is in the Manitoba a key world. It's very linear. You had to start here, work to your next task, work to your next task, work to your next task in order for the game to be complete. We felt that was really, really limiting. So we decided to make it a non-linear path where it was almost like a choose your own adventure. We have a central hub known as the Big House or Plank House. And within that hub, there are many elders. And those elders are all gathering materials, resources to prepare for winter. And you're basically invited to the village to help the elders get materials for winter, to store for winter. And from there, you can choose which way am I going to go. There are three main harvest tasks that we've created, and we're hoping to create more, but let's focus on these three. The first one is the elder sends us out to collect cedar bark and cedar planks. The planks we will use to build a bamboo box. The second learning is a gill netting. We have to go down to the river to where the gill net is, and we have to harvest the salmon, bring it back to the smokehouse, and then from the smokehouse, bring a smoked salmon back inside the big house. And the final challenge is going to the camas field and digging up camas bulbs. And as we do that, we always have to plant behind us. And then we go off into the salmonberry patch and collect salmon berries. So those are our three main learning tasks in the world. But as you can see, we have many, many NPCs. Now, NPCs is non-player characters. They're almost like little informations that posts that students can find and discover when in this world. We have 36 of them. So what Gavin and I decided to do was sort of infiltrate the game. Instead of just having the three, there's actually 36 little lessons within the world that you can go and explore. So we knew that if we wanted to improve the game, things were already in place that we could expand on. So, and within those NPCs, sometimes they have what we call a learn more link. And all you have to do is click on that learn more link and it will take you to a video or an article, all to help support that learning for deeper learning and understanding of the concepts of what that NPC has to talk. But here's another key that's really important. It was great enough for us to understand that, okay, working around and helping out in this village and helping to create it, develop, sort of harvest in a sustainable way, what if we can create an area where the students can demonstrate their learning? And so we created what we call a sandbox world. And it's basically it's in the game, it's in the world, but it's a blank slate. And in that blank slate, they're asked to do those three elders, those three learning tasks. They're asked to go to what we call a build site, and they're asked to do a task where they will have to build. And you're going to see in the presentation, there's two videos I'm going to be showing you. One is one of the build tasks of building a giant, the tallest redwood cedar that we have on the West Coast. And then the other video will be of students who are in our pilot program, and they're going to be explaining their learning. And part of our goal was for the students to take their learning from this virtual world and take it outside to the real world. For example, cedar tree. We're going to go harvest a cedar tree. We can see a video of people harvesting a cedar tree, but let's go outside. Can we find a cedar tree? And what does that feel and look like? So we'll look at that. So again, within the game, there is an educator guide, and there's a technical guide. So if you are scared of video games, trust me, the students already know how to do it. Just sit back and you say, here's the world, here's what we're going to do. off you go, and you say, is there anybody here who knows how to play Minecraft? And all the hands go up, and you're like, okay, great, you will be my experts. That is the best part and the joy of this game. Okay, so your first video you're going to see is the video of students who are going to be building the tallest cedar. Okay.
And the challenge is to build a replica of the Chihuahua giant, and we know that it is 55 meters tall and 6 meters.
See if you can make one that is 6 blocks or 6 of those squares, 6 meters across, but it looks a little bit more like a circle.
So this is a student planning out his base of the tree, so that's 6 meters in diameter.
Yeah, you great. And this is just really quick, so we don't have to make it look pretty. I like that. So you have the illusion of roundness. As it comes over here, you can see you remove some blocks there, and that way it looks a lot rounder. You guys like that? Yeah. Okay, so if we were to make, right? Okay, so where do you think, how far up should we go before we try to make this narrower? What do you guys think?
15 or 20.
Why do you decide that?
I think 20.
Yeah, so if you did up to 20, so let's just draw it in, see what it looks like. It would look like that. Nope. And yeah, okay, so now you feel like at that point you're a full block, looks like a full block in. What would be the next stage then?
I think we should go like maybe say about 40.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And this is just planning. It doesn't even do pretty, does it? Okay. So how?
Diameter. So we got your plan. Where are you gonna build her? How about right here? Okay.
You'll see how fast the students are.
It helps to look down from above, doesn't it? So how are you planning to do that? What's your strategy? Whoops. So you've got the first section planned out. Now you just have to fill it in.
Do you like my ranch? Yes. Do you like my ranch? Yes. No.
You guys are so fast.
Don't place the mark yet.
Oh, because you can't put a ranch on top of the park. Yeah. Yeah, it's actually ladders. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I climbed up them. Where are the leaves? Oh, okay, okay, so but where are the leaves?
That's them putting the bark on the tree.
On the top, let's see what it's like to step off. So walk forward and then drop.
Wait.
Okay? And I'm going to time you to see how long it takes you to get around. You guys ready? So we're going to test this out. All right. So if you step off the top, how long do you think it takes you to drop?
It takes 6.
All right. Who's up first? Okay. Ready? Set. Go.
Okay, so that was the first video. Now this is the video of the students who have finally gone through the whole world, and this is them demonstrating their learning.
On which we gather the traditional territory of the Cowie First Nation and lies within the shared traditional territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Musqueam, Squamish, and Stolo nations, all my relations.
So this is the house post, and not down too far from where your school is. Riverview, there's another one of these. That's the brother to this is the female figure. That's the brother to this pole. The same log in the same part of the park.
This is a 600-year-old cedar that fell at the Coquitlam watershed.
This is the Coquitlam Redfish Healing Center welcome figure. It stands just outside of the building. Here you can see some of the people in my class, including myself, try to recreate the welcome figure in Minecraft. Here is a better angle of the welcome figure. Here you can also see more details, including the red salmon the welcome figure is holding and the feather hat the welcome figure is wearing.
This is my group's Coast Salish project. What you are looking at right now is the welcoming figure with the sockeye salmon in the hands of the welcoming figure. Last but not least, the hardest part of our build, the Chihuahua giant. It was a pretty big challenge, but my group, we worked together and we made it work.
This is our welcome figure. This welcome figure was inspired by the welcome figure at Riverview Redfish Healing Center.
Right here is our big house. This is the interior of our big house. In the far corner, there is our weaving center. And right here is the salmon center.
This is our smokehouse. It is a great place to smoke and preserve the salmon.
This flag represents the Coquitlam First Nations. Our school was gifted this flag and we are thankful to have this gift. This is why we built this flag.
This is the Chihuahua giant. It is bigger than the others because it is really old. This is the Camasbald farm. We have a water source so the crops stay fresh.
All right. Well, that was the students sharing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the virtual world and do a really quick fly through and show you what the world looks like. So when you arrive into the world, you're going to arrive to a NPC who's going to welcome you. And the person who welcomes you says, "Hello, travelers. Before you enter the village, you must be welcomed by the Siam." Now, this is the only area where you will find the language because we wanted to be able to overlay this world up and down the coast of North America. And so Siam is our area's understanding of a person of importance, or in this case, we sort of in brackets say chief. Because the language in Minecraft is so blocky, it would not accept certain, the phonetics, shall we say. So we couldn't really add more language, but that's just your step into language for your local language, wherever you are. He is waiting for you on the shore beneath the welcome figures. Take a blanket from this bentwood box and give the blanket to the Siam. This gesture will be well received on your end. Take the canoe I've given you and go to your shore. So as you can see, there's blankets. We can take a blanket, put it into our inventory, and then we can go. Now I'm going to cheat, and because we don't have a lot of time, we're going to fly. So I'm just going to walk to the edge and we're going to fly over to the shore. So you can see where the welcoming figures are. And that's so that people can orientate themselves as to where the village, because again, every block is 1 meter square. And you notice in the video how the children, they basically destroyed the welcoming figures because they weren't too impressed with it. They wanted to do it themselves and create their own. So that was kind of fun. So here was the Siam. I welcome you to the traditional territory of my people. We have been the caretakers of these lands for millennia. Thank you for the beautiful blanket you may place in the bentwood box. On your journey, remember to always be kind. Take only what you need from the land and give thanks. Always leave enough for the others and for those who come after. Now travel to the entrance of the big house to meet an elder who will invite you in. What we're doing here is we're setting the tone for the students to understand that they're invited to this land. They're guests. They're not here to take anything other than to help and to help with the village. So that's a real key understanding, is they're not here to take all the resources. They're here to help and to assist. So let's go down. There we go. Okay, let's go talk to her. I'm an elder in the Science family. Inside you'll find my relatives, and they are wise elders who will have a task for you to help us prepare for winter. Listen and learn from them and thank them for their teachings. Again, gratitude is a key understanding through all of these tasks. As we enter the big house, and again, this is the hub, we have the cedar elder, and I'll come back to her in a second. Then we have our salmon elder, we have our plant elder, and then over here, we have our ocean resources elder. This is what I'm talking about. We snuck other things in here, but we're gonna hopefully work and develop on that. House building elder, canoe elder, wool weaving elder, and of course you have to have a woolly dog. Oh, sorry, doggy. Whoopsie. There you go. Sorry about that. See if he barks for you. He may not. And then over here, we have our final one, a storytelling elder. So if I talk to the cedar elder, they're going to give us a little bit of understandings to the cedar tree. The cedar tree is the heart of the coastal peoples. We call it the tree of life. And the cedar tree gives us shelter and transportation, tools and clothing. It also keeps our history alive. Follow the trail past the smokehouse to the forest at the end of the lake. Find the cedar forest knowledge keeper who will teach you about the tree of life. Task, and this is one of the three main tasks. Bring back one strip of cedar bark and one cedar plank. When you return here, cooperate with the others in your group to craft a bentwood box. Place it in on the platform next to the bark weaver and store your cedar bark inside. The bark weaver will be able to make so many things with the bark you have harvested. Now you'll notice here at the bottom, there's a build button. Once all of the tasks are done, we can go back to the elder here and click on the build button, and that will send us into the build area. And I'll show you that in a second. But here's what they call, the kids know this as a crafting table, and this is where they will build their bentwood box. But again, we have videos to show them how that is all made with learn more links. Okay, and over here is the bark weaver, and you can see our woven cedar basket over there, and that's where our things would be stored. So let's go out and look at some of the harvest tasks themselves. Now you'll notice as I fly, and there's some eagles flying around, what we've created is a big house or a plank house. And we understand up and down the coast, houses are different, our house construction is different. And that was crucial for us because in STEAM, it's always that compare and contrast, not only with language, but also too with structures and buildings. So as you go further up the coast, you're going to have a different structure of an 8-type frame roof structure as well, other than plank houses, because here in the Coast Salish territory, they were much more mobile with their housing. So we'll go out here. Here's the camas field. So if this is for the plant elder, she would send you down here to the camas field. And we chose camas because camas was one of our starch foods here in the Lower Mainland, but also too, we also had wapato, but it was hard and difficult to have mud flats, shall we say, in the world. So we chose camas as our starch versus wapato. So you'll see that the camas bulb is an important food item for our people. This is my family's camas field. We will maintain it by weeding and transplanting bulbs in the field. We make sure not to over-harvest so that the remaining plants reproduce for next year. After harvest, we sometimes burn the fields to enrich the soil and remove unwanted plants. Right after harvesting bulbs, we cook them in a pit oven in the ground using heated rocks, water, cover of leaves. And when they are ready, they're a little sweet and quite delicious. We can dry them for storage for training. Task. I've given you a digging stick, and you're going to work with others in your group and use it to harvest no more than half of the field. For every plant you harvest, replant one bulb. Pull any weeds you find and plant a bulb in its place. Take your harvest bulbs to the plant elder in the big house for cooking later. Warning, watch out for death camas. It looks a lot like camas, but it will make you very sick. So as you can see, when I fly on the field, it's not rectilinear. It's actually more of a kidney shape. So the students have to work together to figure out, well, what would half of this field be, especially if we're using it. And as you can see, they gave us a digging stick. And we also added different technologies that people would use in the community. So a digging stick would be one of them. Now here's our cedar knowledge keeper. And we'll just go and have a chat. The cedar tree was once a kind and generous man. The transformer changed the man into a cedar tree for him to continue giving to his people. So again, little bits of understanding and story within each of the NPCs. And so again, depending on your area where you live, that's the compare and contrast aspect. What is it in your area? What's the understanding? What's the story behind cedar in your area? Before we take any of the cedar's gifts, we always give a small offering of thanks. Again, reinforcing gratitude. We only take what we need and making sure to harvest in a way that won't hurt the tree. If we take care of the cedar takes care of us. Task, step up onto this path and follow it to the cedar bark and plank knowledge keepers. Learn from them how to harvest with respect. I've given you a tool called an ads to help you with your task. So I'm going to quickly go up this path. And people have asked us, well, why don't you have signposts? I say, well, because in the real world, there was no signposts. You'd have to know where you were at all times, otherwise you get lost. Now you hear down here where it says learn more task. So that's where it would be linking to a video of people in my linked to one of our videos where we're actually stripping cedar bark. So again, you can show the video of the ceremony that it takes to strip bark. And I know some other districts already have that in their video collection on how that's happened. So here is a tree that we can get some cedar bark. Oopsie, I'm in adventure mode, it won't work for me. Anyways, we're gonna fly up over here because we're gonna go show you where this gill net is. So this little plank house here is the smokehouse. And if we come out around to where the river is, over here is your salmonberry field, and there's a knowledge keeper to talk about the salmonberry and give you a task of how to harvest. Yeah, good. And if we go up here, we can talk to our gill netter, and he talks about the salmon people return to their traditional spawning grounds. We greet the salmon when it arrives, and we prepare its body with the greatest care. After eating the salmon, the bones are carefully returned to the water so that its spirit can return again. My net is typically woven from cedar bark or stinging nettle fiber. It's designed to let smaller salmon through. Bigger salmon bump into the net and sometimes find a way around. After we've caught what we need, we open up the net to let the salmon through. Here's your task. Use the spear I've given you to catch one salmon. Again, here's another learn more button and showing people using the gill net and catching their salmon. So if we come over here, you can see all the salmon, and I can use my spear to spear one. Okay. So our final task, I think, would be going back to the smokehouse, and you'll see it's always fun to fly with the eagles. And sometimes when you look carefully, you'll see ravens on top of the buildings. And into the smokehouse we go. If we brought our salmon with us, and you can see all the salmon hanging in the smokehouse, and our job would be to add that. And in the box here are some already pre-made salmon, and we would then take that back to the big house. What I'm going to do is take you to the build area and show you what that looks like, because this is where we really see the math kicking in. Okay, so what it's going to do, right now I'm in what we call adventure mode. Now, adventure mode, you cannot fly. I cheated and I switched myself into creative mode because I needed to fly to move around really quickly, but the students get really, really frustrated because they want to fly. The problem is, in the real world, you can't fly. You have to walk, you have to do the work. And that was a part of the whole goal, is I really wanted the students to have to do the work. So we're going to go to the build, and what it does is it teleports us into this blank slate. And here's the cedar elder right in front of us. And she's there, and this is where the Chihuahua giant, you saw the students building. This is one of their build challenges. And the learn more button there tells us a little bit more of the dimensions and the height. Oh, sorry, wasn't supposed to do that. You guys can't see that, can you? No, that's okay. I hit it accidentally. But that's where that goes. I'm going to go back to the village, and then I'm going to stop sharing and go back to my PowerPoint. See, and it teleports me back to the village, and I go back into adventure mode. Okay, so let's escape this. Okay. Where do you find it? How do you download it? Well, my wife is my tester always, which is great. She has an Apple product. And so what we had to do is on the first over here, we had to go into Google search, and we searched Minecraft education, and it comes up to this website here, which is download, you can start a free trial, but if you live in a district that has Microsoft 365 and you're fairly large, it will almost be part of the package, but it won't be downloaded into your system yet. So you have to download it. And you can see it's for Mac, Windows, Chrome, or iPad. You download it, and then you will have Minecraft education. And that's the key. Look for Minecraft education, okay? Or if you have a Dell, like here in Coquitlam, everyone is given a Dell, you just go into your search bar and you type in Minecraft education through the Microsoft Store. Actually, you type in Microsoft Store and Minecraft education, and it comes up right away. And this is the symbol that you're looking for when you're doing that. And you can download it. And what my wife found is once she downloaded it and opened up the game, because she's on Microsoft 365, it recognized her right away with her district and opened it right up. So she was pretty excited about that. So that is the end for me. Thank you so much for being patient and going through that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Rob. I don't know if anybody was playing alongside, if you're able to download it, or if you were exploring it as Rob was talking about it. But I know that there will be opportunities to ask more questions. At this time, though, we have our two curriculum responders who have made some connections to Minecraft in this world, Pacific Northwest Coast. And so I'd like to first invite Megan to share a few words and noticings from your perspective.
Hi, everybody. My name's Megan. Thank you so much for the introduction earlier as well. So I was speaking with Cynthia about the project and commenting, and I was making some really good connections to mathematics. And then as Rob, as you were playing that video, it seems like there's already some amazing connections that the students are already making, or even not explicitly participating in mathematical thinking, but they are doing mathematical learning. For example, when they were jumping off the tree and counting how many seconds, or estimating how long it would take, that could be a really cool mathematical question, because if you know how long it takes to jump off, then you could probably estimate for other heights of trees as well too, if you know how tall that tree is. So when I was going through, I was asked to comment on a couple of different questions. So I'll start with the first one. So Cedar Elder asks you to build the tallest tree. So I know in the game right now, it's you're making a tree at a certain height. And I was asked to try to figure out if you're making the tallest tree. And I was thinking when I was going through this problem, well, you wouldn't want to, like, I don't think there's a ceiling, but if you could go infinitely in making a really, really large tree, you don't want to sit there and count and count and count and count. You want some sort of principle or equation to help you figure out how tall a tree would be, or how tall it could be, depending on how like wide the width of it as well. And because it would essentially be kind of like a cone, but kind of a funky cone, as you can kind of see the trees in the world. And then from that drawing that Rob was doing as well too, so that was a 2D drawing, but of course it's 3D, so it's kind of a cone. And then it's more of a square at the bottom now that I'm thinking about it, because they're all square blocks, right? So when you're thinking about that, you can talk about ratios or fractions between the tree trunk width and the height of the tree. So for example, if you do have a sample tree, you can also use that and think about how many blocks are there required to enlarge the tree. So you can use volumetric scaling of a 3D cone. I chose a cone just because, but now that I'm thinking about it, we have a flat bottom. So for example, if you make your tree twice as tall as the sample tree, then how many more leaf squares you need to complete the tree? So you're thinking the bottom as well too, but you're also thinking that kind of what they were going through the problem on the piece of paper of like, well, when would you want the tree to get larger? And if you were doing it like exponentially, like kind of like a triangle would, if you could do that, but it'd probably look a little different in a square form. So, and then I was thinking, when you're done that, how would you measure the height of it? How would you evaluate who has the tallest tree? So I was thinking that you could probably use trigonometry, but of course, you would need the angle of inclination, and you need to be able to use a tool in the game. But another idea I had was if you had a reference point, a smaller point, and then you find the ratio between the height and the tree. So that would be a way to figure out and measure how tall a tree would be. So when you're evaluating which student has the tallest tree, those are some ideas there. And actually used the Math UBC website to get some ideas on how to measure tree heights. And these are real world examples. So of course they're going to look a little different in Minecraft because it's a different world. And then the second question that I was asked to consider was so talking about the salmon berries. So a plant elder asks students to sustainably harvest the salmon berries following a particular protocol of harvesting one plant that might contain 5 bulbs, while at the same time returning one to the earth. So my thoughts were in like showing that in a hundreds chart. You could show how many were harvested in one color versus ones that would be returned to the earth, kind of like in the example of the camas garden. So it's the same kind of principle. And then I was thinking at the same time of there's a math equation there as well too. If you're taking a certain amount and you're leaving a certain amount, and then you want to make sure that the population is being maintained as well too, then there's an expression that you could create from that as well too. I was thinking the same for the weir or the gillnet, talking about sustainable fish populations. And for example, if you know that you want to figure out how many fish would be the same next year, you could go fish next year equals fish birth rate times bracket fish this year minus fish taken. And then you'd figure out how many fish would be how many fish you could take in order for the population to sustain itself as well. So that's thinking that for salmon berries. Another project that I like to do with students is also like designing garden, but I always preface that as Indigenous gardens don't look like a garden that we would think about in our garden where we have like a fence and it's only a certain area. And harvesting, for example, camas or salmon. Well, I'm going to stick with camas because I know more about that. So camas would be harvested and maintained by Indigenous folks on the coast here, and the plants would be all around, so they'd be naturally within the environment. So you're thinking about making a garden, and that could be playing around with you have a perimeter area, but then it looks different. And then recording and analyzing data, you're making predictions based on patterns. So you're recording how many plants are being harvested and how many plants are being returned to the earth. So there's a whole bunch of data you can analyze there also to kind of understand the sustainability of plant harvesting as well too. And then the last question I was asked to comment on was a salmon elder asked to create a sustainable fishing weir or gill net. So I mentioned the expression on sustainable populations as well. And then I was also looking for a little bit of inspiration, and I found the Finesse Math First Peoples resource. I'll post that one in the chat as well too. And in there, they have a couple of really cool lessons on statistics in salmon and then probability with salmon as well too. So if you wanted to specifically talk about salmon, which is salmon harvesting is the purpose of having a fish net or a fish trap or however that looks like in the territory that you are from. So I also know that for me, there's different types of fish traps. So I was thinking that another project that could be done in the classroom and then also translated onto Minecraft could be like creating a paper one in real life and then scaling it into Minecraft. So that has them exploring a bunch of different questions, right? Like how long should the poles be? How many do you need? How far space should the poles be? What's the gap between the sticks? How big's the river? All of those types of questions. Because for me, when I'm talking about culturally responsive math, that means that I'm giving students an example of a real life situation. And there's so many examples in the Pacific Northwest Coast experience for Minecraft. And then once they have those examples, basically we're figuring out, well, what's all the math behind this, behind the fishnet or behind a really tall cedar tree? Like what's all the knowledge that Indigenous folks would need to have in order to participate in that environment. So that's kind of my perspective on Indigenous math and culturally responsive math. And you're giving students also a reason to engage because it's in their local environments and it matters to them because it's things that they see. Like I get super excited whenever I see a salmonberry or a thimbleberry in my environment because it's where I live and I can see that and it has meaning to me as a person, so as a student as well too. What we're learning about is relevant to them. And I really appreciate this project. And thank you, Rob, for all the work you've been doing because it's so much fun. The kids love Minecraft and getting to learn at the same time and do really fun stuff. It's exactly what I would love to have in a classroom. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Megan, for those insights and thoughts related to what you noticed in the Minecraft world. You've given us lots to think about as well in terms of trying to make some of those connections. So now, Joanne, would you like to invite Christina and then I'll just get the slides ready?
Christina, we introduced you already, but let's hear what your ideas are to spark some further thoughts about Minecraft, Northwest Coast cultures and math education.
I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm really grateful to be able to be here, to be part of this team and to be able to explore this, just this really innovative way for students to be able to engage in our natural worlds through technology. So I'm coming to you from Meadow Ridge. I'm currently located on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gagiid, Kwantlen, and Coast Salish people. So we are very fortunate to value the opportunity to learn, laugh, and play on this educational to share educational experiences on this traditional land. So part of what I'm hoping to do today is to bring a little bit of the technology piece to this. So I was really excited to hear about this program through some of my colleagues. And the reason why is because being in the tech world, it is one of the most difficult things to incorporate technology with outdoor education and with play-based learning. So having this opportunity to be able to explore this platform has been a really wonderful opportunity because it really does focus a lot on the skills that the students need to use in terms of their mathematical thinking, in terms of their curricular competencies, and being able to connect with something that they know so well, which is the Minecraft and gaming world. How can we bring that world that they are so familiar with into something that is so significant and that's something that we want them to be able to find and understand the meaning of? So I felt that this platform was a great way of introducing it. And starting with the kindergarten and grade 3 age, one thing I noticed about this particular game is that there is a lot of basic math and arithmetic and geometry. So something as counting resources, looking at seedlings. This is something that the kids can do at a very young age. And when they're in the game, they may not necessarily find the relationship between picking up seedlings in the game versus in real life. So one of the practices that we actually do at our school is we do an honorable harvest with our primary school kids. And in the honorable harvest, what the students are doing is they are understanding and learning a lot about what they can take from the land and what they need to give back. So it's emphasizing the idea of respect. It's emphasizing the idea of knowing what is in our local surroundings and what does our land actually have to offer. So there's again an image of some of our students here. And so what they're doing is they're making tea bags using some of the materials that are found on our land. We do have, again, some kind of regulations and rules that we want them to respect, and that includes not taking anything that's a first. So for example, if it is a new seedling, if it's one of the only ones available, we do ask them to not take that directly. So having observations of what is abundant around them, what do they notice that is plentiful, is a great way for students to be able to count and understand quantity and numbers. We on the right-hand side here, we also have a picture of Koa, and one of the investigations that our kindergartners do is called risky play. So as Rob mentioned, these kids are going to be experts at navigating Minecraft. And one thing that they probably will learn faster than I did was the ability to fly. I didn't know that, so it took me a long time to, again, have to navigate through the terrain, running through the forest, jumping off cliffs, and some cliffs I couldn't jump out of because I didn't realize that it was too tall for me to jump onto. And these are all different skills that the kids are picking up in the game. But how does that relate to real life? So in this image, Koa is playing around with some of the trees that we have on our campus. And he's learning through risky play, is he able to actually climb onto that trunk? What does he need? How high is the trunk in retrospective to his size and his height? What are some ways that he can, again, make that more accessible? And even though in Minecraft, it is an imaginary world, a lot of what they do in that game can translate to different activities that they do in real life. So for Koa, he might realize that in Minecraft, he could jump that easily. However, in real life, his short legs might not be able to get him over that log. So again, navigating and finding ways around those obstacles is a great way for them to have that concrete understanding of different dimensions of height and also for different measurements. So in grade 4 and grade 7, some of the ways I felt that this was a great way of incorporating it was through looking at fractions and decimals and even basic algebra. So for example, the scaling and understanding the vastness of this particular terrain can give kids really a true understanding of how to navigate the terrain in real life. So one of the coordinates again plays a big part in grade 5, 6, and 7. And so learning to navigate and transport to a specific area can take time and understanding where specific locations are. So for grade 7s, one of the examples that we felt for Minecraft really helped with was, again, looking at perimeter and area. So one of the benefits that we have at our school is that we do have a farm. So a lot of our kids actually started off with designing the farm and the garden beds at our school. So they had to look at configuring different dimensions, what worked in terms of making it the most accessible. And even though this is different than some of the, again, the natural garden beds, a lot of students did have to think in terms of conceptually how far different organisms needed to have in order for them to flourish. So knowing and understanding the distance between different plants was a huge factor when doing something like this. So for grade 8 and above, one of the great things I love about this particular game is that it really gives you an understanding of geometric transformations. So when you look at the scale of some of these buildings, so for example, the scale of the welcome sign, it is quite large. And one of the questions might be, why is it that it had to be made so big in the Minecraft world? What were some challenges about making these beautiful curves that exist in the Minecraft world, but maybe not in real life? So giving kids some of these understandings of there are limitations obviously in the technology world, but what are some of the limitations that they may need to overcome? So I love the example that Rod gave of building the cedar. That was actually one that came into my mind as well, looking at the circumference and diameter of different trees. And one of the other ideas that came into my mind is looking at perspective. So looking at the angles of where we're viewing these trees from. So our grade 10s actually they participate in a transdisciplinary activity, which involves art and math. And one of the things we get them to do is we get them to go into our forest and they do sketches of some of these trees. So they note how far they are away from the trees, and they look at what angles, how do things look different depending on the angles that they're sitting at. So these students are again sitting on a fallen tree bark. Others, again, are located up at the top of the hill and looking down into the valley. And so through their points and references, they're able to, again, gauge just the dimensions and how they're able to visualize and see the different perspectives of the trees based on where they're situated. So this is again great when you're looking at Minecraft because you do have the opportunity to go up into the air and fly like an eagle. However, it also gives you the perspective of being able to navigate through different terrain and having that opportunity to front load and to give the opportunities for the kids to really understand the background knowledge and understanding. It then can again transfer that into real life because oftentimes it's really difficult to make that connection. So I am so grateful to be able to be part of this and to again trial this. And I'm really excited to be able to explore this platform a bit more with my students. But at the same time, also be able to bridge these two worlds together because I feel like this is one that will resonate. It will resonate with a lot of our students because they do love gaming.
Great. Thanks, Christina. And again, another rich set of mathematics ideas that still connects students to nature and culture, which is important. So we have time now for questions from all our guests who have joined us. So if you have a question for Rob and or also for Megan and Christina, please either put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask your question, and maybe we could, yes. I also see additional ideas. Fred Harwood from Richmond had given some ideas in relation to the needs of the population for the winter, determining the size of the smokehouse, rates of smoking, number of fish, etc. So other ideas?
One of the ideas that we're working on towards to make improvements to the game is the build challenge is when the students create their own big house, is giving them sort of an open-ended project, because as you know, a plank house can be added on as the family grows. So, you know, I'm saying, you'll need to build a structure that will hold 6 families. And then, well, you have to determine how much room does one family need. It needs a fire pit. It needs a place for weaving. So from there, the students will, you know, engage in group work to figure that out. So that's another one as well.
Hey, Rob, have you figured out how to have a feast with the camas and salmon?
In the game or in real life? Yeah, in the game or real life.
Yeah, perhaps both, but
well, you'll find it's funny actually, in the game you will find that you can actually eat camas and you can eat the salmon. So yeah, you can. You'll have little hearts and little sort of chicken legs to show how your life is going, and you can actually feed yourself. It's pretty cool. Yeah, deadly camas. Yeah, it's funny. In the game, we had to do a lot of reskinning, and the death camas is actually just a poisoned potato, and so we renamed it death camas. It just makes you sick. It won't kill you, so that's good.
I have a question about the branches. Like when you showed us how to make the tree. Are the branches made fractal-like as they are in real life, or are they, because they look like they look fractalish when you look up at it? But I'm just wondering.
It's a really good point. So what the students did is they added some of the wood to make the solid part of the branches, but then there's leaves, so cedar leaves, and like you say, they're fractals of a block to attach to the other block, so it makes it look leaf-like, but you're exactly right, it's a fractal of a block to give it a leaf structure type of thing. Yeah.
There's a comment about core competencies, and those were some of the notes I took down too, the persistence that students needed to engage in when things were hard. One of the students commented on that this was challenging, but we kept trying. And that it takes time, these things as well. So many of those core competencies in collaboration, they talk about working together. We could do it sort of are living in this project, not just sort of in the creation, but in the experience of the world as well. Yeah. Different tasks.
Yeah, in some of the pro days or conferences that we've attended, the first thing we say to all of the educators who are there is, you are going to practice patience and time. Let's all repeat that. And sure enough, the frustration just to get off the island to the land, a lot of them don't understand how to jump into a canoe and paddle over, and they're swimming halfway across. And I say, yep, patience and time, it's all good. So that's the fun part.
Megan, you had a question? Did you want to ask that question?
Oh, Megan, right. You talked about the tallest. Well, actually in the build challenge, the elder actually gives them a link to the tallest cedar. And so their challenge is to recreate the tallest cedar. So is there a ceiling in Minecraft? I've never explored it to see if there is, because if we gave them a challenge of who can build the tallest cedar, in 5 seconds, they'll have a huge, massive cedar. So what we've done is we've given them some parameters to go and investigate the tallest cedar on the West Coast, called a Chihuahua Giant, and it gives the dimensions. So the students, that's why you saw in the planning stage, the cone shape, because they knew how tall it was and they knew the diameter of it was 6 meters. And so then from there is where they planned how were they going to stage it to make it that tall. So no, there wasn't a challenge to go ahead and build the tallest one. It was to try to replicate in Minecraft world using those parameters. What we suggest you do is when you're grouping kids know how to host. So one laptop can host other players in their world. So if you have 4 or 5 students and you saw them all running around there, one student had his laptop and he can host, and in other words, invite people into their game using their other laptop. So everybody's on their own laptop, but they'll all be in that one world. And we've tried it with a class of 30 and it's unmanageable. People are lost, people can't find anywhere, people are bumping into people, and the behavior is outrageous. So when you're in a smaller group and you say, who's ever hosted a Minecraft world? All the hands go up. You say, okay, you're a leader, you're a leader, you're a leader. This is your group, this is your group. And what we find is that those smaller groups, they maintain themselves. It's like they know never leave anyone behind, right? To make sure everybody's together. And if someone destroys something, oh, they're on them right away. They're like, oh, you can't do that. What are you doing? We have to, and so it's groupthink where they're monitoring themselves in their behavior, understanding that they're here as a guest and not to destroy things. So it's really good. They self-monitor themselves in a smaller group.
I know, Rob, when we were preparing for this session, you had a short video clip of high school students. I don't remember what grade they were, but they were high school students, weren't they?
Yeah.
Playing, and they were sitting around a table. Everybody had their own laptop, and they were talking about the challenge that was posed in front of them, and that it was challenging, and that it was a good shot of older kids getting into it as well. So this isn't just for young kids. This is across.
No, we've infiltrated 2 high schools so far, and a lot of the times they're using it for environmental sciences, and BC First Peoples is what they're using the game for. And what we're hearing back from teachers is exactly here, like in this symposium, in this cast, it's math lens. And so we're really trying to show teachers that with STEAM, you have a science, you have socials, you have language arts. We try to embed as many different curricular avenues because we have a storyteller. We actually have Shane Point telling the story of the 2-headed serpent story, right? So we have story embedded within the whole world. But again, our goal was here's a virtual world. How can you take that into the real world? And so I really appreciate Christina's photos because that's exactly the goal. Is okay, here's a tree. Well, let's go outside, let's look at a tree, let's try to figure out, how do we estimate? Can we estimate with students, with hands, or, how can we figure out how tall it is? I love that, right? How do you assess learning? How do I assess learning? As you saw in the video of the students, we have many, many different learning tasks within the game. And the students actually came to their teacher and gave them their video, and others did it in a PowerPoint of what they've learned through the world and then how they applied it into their build structures. And they would just explain their learning of what they learned in that world. And so the teacher actually created a rubric for them to sort of follow along to see if they understood some of the underlying understandings while they were doing their builds, and the students would then have to do that.
Thank you. I raise my hands and thanks and respect to you, Rob, and to your team, and for working with Coquitlam First Nation, a community, to, you know, draw upon their culture, the Indigenous teachings, working together to create engaging learning for students that is experiential, that is intergenerational, that really links together community, culture, and math education. It's so exciting that has occurred, and now we can draw on your experiences and others. We have great ideas that Megan and Christina have shared. So, you know, we've had a feast of math education ideas. We've been reminded about the important Indigenous teachings that connect us to environment and more than humans. And we also know you can have lots of fun learning through this Minecraft Pacific Northwest Coast project. So thank you, everyone, for sharing what you know and your experiences. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today, and look forward to seeing everyone April 9th at our final session. Cynthia, any other words you'd like to share?
Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, just thank you to everyone who's attended, and to our speakers for sharing a bit of their work and posing some good questions and more for us to think about. I'm excited to get into the game. And I just want to say one thing, but I know about Minecraft, but I've never played it. And the game that I actually was able to get into was the, what's it called? Survival mode, you said, Rob, right? And so I thought, oh my gosh, inside the game, you're punching things down, you're punching cows, you're trying to get food, you're trying to survive. It was a bit intense, and it's just such a different game, the Pacific Northwest Coast, where a different set of values guide your movement through the game. I really like the idea of technology being the space to explore some of these values, some of these Indigenous values around teaching. So I think that there's lots there for us to explore further. And I hope to hear back from you about what you've been doing since this time to our next time, if you get an opportunity to try some of these out. So thank you very much for joining. Anybody have any final thoughts that you want to share? Anybody from our team? Okay, great.
I was going to say the same thing, Cynthia, how the approach is disrupting Minecraft as, you know, a competitive, sometimes destructive game to actually be a process of, you know, reciprocity and care and nurturing and even restoration. So I'm so super excited. We were just talking about with the Indigenous team from Qualicum who are on the call today. So I was so excited to see it. So thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks, Leyton. Okay. Well, I think we're ready to wrap up. So thank you, everybody, once again. And if you didn't have a chance to fill the poll out, please do, or put some comments in the chat. And we'll see you on our final session for this series in April 9th. Thank you, everybody. Bye.